Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimale in Abuja. Well, a lot of activities happening. Blinking might just make you lose out because evenings like this, there are a lot to extract from what is happening from the presidential villa. It's the third week of the Tinubu presidency, and a lot is happening that we need to catch up. So stick around with me, everyone, as we're going to take you through the ride and give you the sense of what is going on. Let me begin tonight with a story that is not as much as the stories that we might be discussing tonight, and that is what the former governor of Zamfara State, former Governor Abdulaziz Yari, has come out to react to the outcome of the National Assembly leadership election, which held yesterday, where Senator Godswill Akpabio emerged as the Senate President and Mr. Tajuddin Abbas emerged as a Speaker of the House. He was specifically speaking about the election in the Senate, where he ran against Senator Godswill Akpabio, who was the favorite of the APC and the leadership of the party. I'd like you to listen to Senator Abdulaziz Yari. He's talking about betrayal.
Yes, I can say that there's a betrayal. That's the truth. Because as we're taking stock as a 3 a.m. Monday, Tuesday election, we took stock of over 76. But as usual, human being, we thought that we are going to get a pollout of about 15, which will have a comfortable 61 to win the election. But it's become the reverse, which is only God knows what happened. So that one I feel betrayed, but life continues, and it's a cycle.
That's from our Governor Abdulaziz Yari, Senator Yari from Zamfara State. Now, President Bola Tinubu today appointed the likes of Mr. Dele Alake, Mr. Wale Edun, Zacchaeus Adedeji, and Nohure Badu, a former EFCC chairman, as part of his first eight team of the special advisor in his cabinet. And so we'll be getting a sense of what this means altogether and the roles as which he has given some of these people, and the first 3 weeks of the Bola Tinubu presidency. How has it been so far? What are the issues that have been propped up? But again, there are those who have been talking about what Senator Bukachua said on the floor about his wife, and what Senator Okorocha said about Senator Ahmed Lawan. Some of these issues have drawn the attention of a lot of Nigerians to get our attention tonight on the program. So stick around with me because we'll get talking about this. But first, let's check out your political roundup stories.
The governor of Benue State, Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia, has read the Riot Act to local government chairmen, urging those incapable of maintaining the peace and security to resign. Governor Alia gave this charge while meeting with the 23 chairmen of local government areas for the first time at the government house in Makurdi, the state capital. He told the chairman that he's not thinking of dissolving the local government administration, but charged them to work with him to ensure peace and security for the people of the state. In Delta State, Governor Sheriff Oborevori is appealing to council chairmen across the 25 local government areas in the state to stop irrelevant and unnecessary taxes levied on residents. The directive is to ameliorate the suffering of the people, especially with the hike in the price of fuel owing to the removal of fuel subsidy. The governor made the appeal during a meeting with the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria, ALGON, Delta State chapter, led by Mr. Victor Ebonka. The People's Democratic Party in Adamawa State has passed a vote of confidence on Governor Amadu Umaru Fintiri, and the presidential candidate of the PDP in the 2023 presidential elections, Atiku Abubakar. The PDP chairman in Adamawa State, Mr. Tahir Shehu, announced the position of the party when he received supporters of the party from Jada community of the state at the party secretariat in Yola, the Adamawa State capital. The Ogun State chairman of the New Nigeria People's Party, Sunday Ogini, has dismissed the reports of his alleged defection to the ruling All Progressives Congress, saying that the rumors are the figment of the imagination of his political detractors. He made the declaration in Abeokuta, the state capital, while addressing journalists at the state secretariat of the party. And the Abia State House of Assembly has elected Mr. Imam Emmanuel Emerua as the Speaker of the 8th House of Assembly. Mr. Emerua, who is a first-time lawmaker of the Labour Party, emerged as the presiding officer shortly after Governor Alex Otti inaugurated the new members. The House also elected Mr. Austin Meregine of Umuahia East constituency as the Deputy Speaker amid protests from the opposition People's Democratic Party.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. So much activities are happening at the presidential villa today. President Tinubu inaugurated the National Economic Council and his promise to sustain the rejuvenation of the nation's economy. We've been seeing several reactions on the state of the economy. The president has made a promise on the 8th focal point of his administration, including security, the economy, job creation, agriculture, and infrastructure. He's asked the team to ensure that there are no excuses as he inaugurated the National Economic Council. Take a listen to the president.
We have already taken significant steps by ending the fuel subsidy and unifying the foreign exchange rate. This government will continue to transform our nation's fortunes and bring about unprecedented development through good governance. We are committed to sustainable initiatives and programs that will stimulate the rejuvenation of the economy without causing inflation. Collaboration is not a crime. Please let us do so. It is also evident that the task of growing our economy is quite enormous. But you and I ask for it, we campaign for it, we even dance for it, we beg for it. So we have no reason to complain.
Also, we've seen the visitation from a former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, who visited a presidential villa. The president himself was at the downstairs to welcome the former head of state into the State House, and also a former the 14th Emir of Kano and former governor of the central bank, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, was also welcome at the State House, which is the first time since the president assuming office. It comes barely a week after the president suspended Mr. Emefiele as the CBN governor. Thereafter, the meeting went into a closed-door session. And, well, you remember that President Tinubu had sent a request to the Senate seeking approval to appoint 20 advisors, special advisors, and he has used 8 out of that slot. And today, we can tell you from what the release from the State House, now we have the names of some of those who have been appointed as a special advisor on security, Mr. Nuhu Badu, who was a former EFCC chairman, and Mr. Wali Odun was appointed today as a special advisor on monetary policies. The president appointed Ms. Olu Vajang as the special advisor on energy. Mr. Zacchaeus Adedeji has been as the special advisor on revenue. Others include John Uwajumogu, a special advisor on industry, trade, and investment, and Salma Anas, special advisor on health. The appointment, we understand, takes immediate effect. Let's get a sense of what this means altogether. Don't forget, just stick around with me because I told you earlier that what Senator Bukuchua said is getting a lot of reactions, and those who are asking that investigation and prosecution should be done in the respect of what was said. And also, we look at what Senator Rochas Okorocha and the implication of what they said on the judiciary. Let's get talking about some of these issues. I'm being joined tonight by our former presidential spokesperson, Mr. Ima Niboro. He joins us virtually. Thank you so much, Mr. Niboro, for joining us. Sometimes ago, we were trying to look ahead to the inauguration. The inauguration has come. This is the third week in the life of the Tinubu presidency. The appointment of today, 8 out of the 20 that the president has sought the Senate's approval. Well, we understand that some of these appointments do not need Senate approval in terms of then going through the rigor of being scrutinized by the Senate. To give us an understanding, the kind of atmosphere, you have been in that circle before. What do you think has been going on in the last few days? The president has been running with a very slim team. Now he's gotten 8 more people, but in special advisor roles.
Well, Sean, thanks for having me. I'm saying that President Bola Tinubu has hit the ground running very much the way those of us who have an impressive track record. And so far, he has vanquished and invalidated the fears of many Nigerians who made all kinds of assumptions about age, about this, about that. So, but you're seeing the sheer capacity that he has brought into governance in just 3 weeks. His appointments so far have been commendable. Well, usually these things take time. The appointment of special advisors had to wait for the Senate clearance for the positions, because you can't just appoint without the Senate giving you the slots on these appointments. And I think usually what you see is that the president, these first set of appointments, like I always say, are usually from people he knows well, people he trusts, people he has been with, people who know him very well, who, without speaking, understand him, know his direction, know where he's going to. So these are some of the people you've seen in this initial team now. Somebody like Dele Alake, we all know the relationship between him and the president. They've been together for years. Nuhu Ribadu, also a constant around the president for many years now. So you see that these appointments, more appointments will come. Usually the first set of appointments are from an inner circle kind of people that already know his mind. He doesn't really need to be introduced to or them introduced to him. So I think so far, so good.
Now, there's some nomenclature that are not very common. We've not seen them in a long time. Communication and strategy, advisor on security. That those who are confusing and wondering whether it is the national security advisor or just an advisor on security. What can you tell us about these nomenclatures and some of these roles?
Well, let me talk about the advisor on special duties, communications and strategy. You remember that Dele Alake was the first commissioner in Nigeria, I hope my memory serves me well, that was appointed as Commissioner for Information and Strategy in Lagos during the then Governor Bola Tinubu's first term. You see, that nomenclature became the norm in other states, but it started in Lagos with Dele Alake. And that tells you that his role as Commissioner of Information then was not just to disseminate information, but also it was part of the strategic team. It's part of the strategic planning of governance. And that is what has also been transported to the presidency. He is in charge of special duties, which means he can undertake assignments that are not within the description of his special advisor role. Because of his closeness to the president, he takes on very crucial assignments on behalf of the president, on behalf of government. So that's why you see special duties there. Then communications, of course, that's his core discipline. He's a very senior colleague of ours, which we all know, highly respected. And then you have the same strategy that tells you that he's not just somebody he's not just going to be a talking head, he's also a thinking head one of the heads that the president is counting on to define the direction of his governance. So his appointment is very clear, very commendable. Nuhu Ribadu, Special Advisor Security, very commendable one. Very experienced police officer, retired as AIG, with a lot of knowledge of Nigeria and especially challenges of the Northeast, that area he also comes from. Many would think that he's probably a placeholder for the NSA position, but nobody knows. You cannot say for sure. So right now, he will play his role as special advisor security to the president, and it will depend on the president to take a decision going forward what he wants to do, whether to make him NSA or to create an independent office within the presidency again for him. All these are within the prerogative of the president. It's really hard to dictate to the president what he wants to do because he sees in individuals certain kind of attributes that he needs to work with. And that's what you are seeing so far in these appointments.
Let me bring in Professor Jide Ofo-Adibe. Professor Jide Ofo-Adibe has since joined us. Thank you so much, Prof. Professor Jide Ofo-Adibe is a political scientist and is a professor of political science and international relations at the Nasarawa State University, KEFI, an extraordinary professor of governmental studies at the Northwestern University, Mafeking in South Africa, and he's also a columnist. Thank you so much indeed, Prof, for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Third week of President Tinubu, what is your assessment? I saw your article the other day.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been action-packed, and so far, one thing he has been able to show that people who are concerned about whether he has the stamina to do the job, I think he's trying to prove them wrong. On the other hand, a number of policies unleashed at the same time will also raise some concerns. For example, the removal of subsidies has not properly cascaded through the system, through the entire value chain, so we don't know how that's going to work out. And then came this announcement of, the flotation of our forex. So if that leads to inflationary pressure, at the same time, the removal of subsidy has only inflationary pressure at the time when the wages are stagnant. So how would that work out? So every policy has unintended consequences. And one of the concerns, good policy when you announce, for example, taking off student, signing this bill on student loan, which is the common practice in the Western world. But that raises also the question of whether you can transfer one policy from one environment to another without tinkering with it. Even at a smaller level, how many people repay, loans given to them? I would have preferred, rather than doing so many, we have a few and see how it works, and then deal with some of the unintended consequences of that policy, and then, that will have my take. But so far, so good, in my own opinion. And he has tried to appoint people that are not controversial. There are certainly people many of us will not want to see in the list because they will make the job of post-campaign reconciliation more difficult. People who have promoted provincialism, who have promoted, xenophobia of all sorts, and people who are extremely controversial. And so far, he has seemed to, keep them aside. He will still probably find something for them, but certainly, in my own opinion, not in the front row of his own administration.
I call them the very first, Tinubu's first 8. This is, he's had a few people, the chief of staff and all of you in that sense, but this is his very first appointment. Yeah. And these the special advisors will assume some kind of cabinet sitting also. They might also have a chair within the cabinet meetings, which we have seen in the past happening. So with the quality and the areas and the position that he has allotted to some of these people, for example, a specific office for monetary policies.
Yep.
Mr. Wale Edun.
Edun, who is very, very highly respected.
Yes,
highly
and you know his background. Olu Vanjen also, we know, young person, but a lady in the mix, and comes with her own experience of almost 2 decades in the energy and renewable energy sector. The likes of Zacchaeus Adedeji, who is the chair of the Sugar Council, is also a first-class accountant. The likes of Mr. Dele Alake. Well, these are people that have been with him all along. Talk about Mr. Nur Badu. He's also been John Wajumogo. Now, look at the position, for example. SA Revenue, SA Energy, SA Monetary Policy. These are critical, specific. Areas, What do you make? What do you think was on the mind of the president when he was putting these names across these positions?
If you ask me, some of these people are going to be even more powerful. Members of the kitchen cabinet can be more powerful than even the ministers because they are much more trusted. And the ministers, many of them will come in, to satisfy the political IOUs. So I'm extremely in people like Alake. I have a lot of respect for him. I'm not so sure about. I just hope Ribadu, has matured with time. I'm not more among those who.
You're not his fan.
No. I think I will give you. I wouldn't give him pass mark when he was the first EFCC chairman. He was rather too combustible, and it has happened with all the other EFCC chairmen that the tendency to believe that it is a show of force, that you need to show that you're fearless, rather than the use of your brain and intelligence. And the hope is that with time, that age and the passage of years will have led to Ribadu maturing and learning the areas where he made mistakes, because he really played a part in damaging the democracy during the period of Obasanjo appointed him. So we just hope he has grown, he has matured more, and that obviously the demands of intelligence, being an intelligence advisor, whether we call it national security advisor,
no,
whatever.
Because he said, do you think, because it's
whatever
but if you see the way that Bola Tinubu operated in Lagos, for example, and some of the nomenclatures that he gave, and in fact that also transmitted into when Fashola became governor also, perhaps one of the first time that we see the likes of his advisor on media and strategy sitting in cabinet, and that's the position of someone who served as a CPS. CPS will not naturally sit in cabinet, but you see this kind of thing happening. So you look at how President Tinubu perhaps is trying to image or put together his team and the kind of nomenclature that he has attached to this position. Those who are mixing whether this is a national security advisor or an advisor that is personal to the president.
In the past couple of years, it's always been the domain of the military. So we don't know his mind, but it could also be one way of not trying to hurt the ego of the militaries. We call him an advisor. That could be one way. It is also possible that it's a simple change of nomenclature. We don't really know until we have never had 2 security advisors. So it can actually be argued that if he makes it the norm, if it goes by the president, there's only 1 security advisor, then whether you call him national security advisor or special advisor does not matter. But if he's trying to balance competence and political IOU, how to co-opt some of his core loyalists.
That may be dangerous.
No. Every politician has to do that.
Especially because of some key roles. Sometimes you have to look at professionals. Those who have advocated
there are also people who made
their key roles.
Their politicians are also made by their loyalists.
But if there are IOUs and you don't find fitting into those critical areas, economy, security, these are areas experts have said,
he's a
put
retired
people who are in politics.
So he has, this rivalry between the military and the police in terms of who should be in control of internal security. It could be playing out. So if you really, I know we had policeman Gambo who was an SA at a point, but that tension has always been there. It could be one way he tries to resolve that tension, get a former policeman who is a special advisor, and then without hurting the feelings of the military top-notch, and still retains the NSA. We don't know. With time, we have to, these things will have to play out, and we'll have a fuller picture of what his thoughts are.
Mr. Limboro, let me bring you back to the conversation. You are being in that cycle, so I need you to help us make a sense of these working relationship from President Obasanjo to President Yar'Adua and the working template of President Jonathan. From years to years and from administration to administration, there's been change in style in which how they use their team, and in fact, how their chief of staff worked when we had two chief of staff in the villa, when we had one of them, and a whole lot of these issues that came up. Different nomenclature work for different presidents. But, I mean, have you seen a situation where we had more powerful special advisors at the villa?
Well, Cheryl, I need to make a little bit of clarification. I overheard you talking about chief press secretaries not attending cabinet meetings. I don't think that's quite correct, because in the presidential villa, the special advisor on media actually attends all the president's meetings, except specific meetings where the president requests him not to be there for whatever reasons.
I was making a reference in the case of the states, where CPS governors usually don't attend cabinet meetings. But in Lagos, Akim Bello was appointed a media advisor to Fashola, and he was sitting in cabinet. So, I mean, I was making reference to the fact that from Tinubu days, the nomenclature has slightly changed to what people were used to and what happened in other states, like you inferred.
Yes, Excellency. So that's very key, because and now this special advisor has been appointed. It's a very, very important one, because it's somebody that knows the mind of the president. They've been together for years. They're very close. So that's a key appointment. And through the years, governments have liberty. It's a matter of nomenclature, actually. You know, the job is a special advisor. In fact, there are those who actually want to argue that even the chief of staff is really a special advisor, because that the role of chief of staff is actually unknown to the Nigerian public service organogram. So it is actually at the discretion of the president. Sometimes we used to ask, when I was in the villa, we used to joke with the chief of staff that we as special advisors, our positions on the organogram, yours is not. You know, but, well, you know, he is more powerful. He's actually the head of the president's entire team. So everything depends on how the president wants to get things wrong. Like the issue we talked about of the special advisor on security, yes. The president, it is presidential prerogative. He is the president. I always say, I remember when Jonathan was president, I was MD now and then. That was when these issues of insecurity were really, really biting very hard. And I made a proposal to him then that, look, beyond these issues of special advisors and all that, you have an NSA, excellent, very powerful position. But I also proposed then that we should have a Ministry of National Security and upgrade whoever the special advisor is to become a minister, a full-fledged minister of cabinet in charge of national security that takes teams from all the security services working under him in fluid command and control system. That was my proposal at that time, although the president then also told me that, well, the country was already difficult in terms of finances, that creating a new ministry will now come with the entire overhead of minister, permanent secretary, right down to staffing, etc., etc. So I think that's why he did not quite agree to go in that direction. So whatever role you give, if, for instance, we had that kind of ministry today, a Nuhu Ribadu would have been perfect to be the minister in charge of national security, something that is built around the concept of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. See, that would have been perfect for him. That doesn't mean that the NSA office still exists in that wise. In the U.S., the NSA office exists side by side with the Department of Homeland Security. So that would have been a very natural fit for somebody like Nuhu Ribadu without having to touch the natural echelon of the NSA position that usually has deferred to the military through the years, although it actually started from the special branch, which was the old, the old external intelligence service there many years ago. So that would have been perfect for Nuhu Ribadu, but well, like we all know, every government has its own prerogative, and usually governments have an
Mr.
eye
Niboro,
on,
I mean, just a moment. There are those who believe that the National Security Advisor position, it cannot be a prerogative issue because it is enshrined in the Constitution. It cannot be altered because it is cast in the Section 318 of the Nigerian Constitution. And so that's why some people are of the opinion that there will still be an NSA because that is the provision of the Constitution.
Excellent. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Shehu. You see, if the NSA position is there by law, it has to be there. So if you want to avoid it, if you want a new Ribadu with all his experience, all his knowledge, he will have even be more effective as a Minister of National Security or Minister of Internal Security, whatever you want to call it. So that the NSA remains there because by tradition, as the prof said just now, by tradition, all the NSAs of late have been military generals because the service chiefs actually, although they actually function in relationship with the NSA, many times they actually defer to the office of NSA. I know, for instance, that most service chief appointments are actually done on the recommendation of the city NSA at that time. So you find that they defer to the NSA, and usually that NSA, because he's a retired military person, probably very senior to them, is somebody they will have worked with, they will have functioned under one capacity or the other. Usually they draw from the army, which is the biggest of the three armed services. And usually, because of this, you find that there is a fluid command and control system between the office of the NSA, the service chief, all working together under the commander-in-chief. But in this regard, I think we need a little bit of tinkering to see if we can give Nuhu Ribadu a stronger voice and a stronger role.
Thank you so much, Mr. Imaniboro. Thank you so much indeed for the insight and the benefit of sharing your experience working in the presidential villa with us tonight. Thank you so much indeed. Prof, stick around with me. We need to take a break. And when we return, I will also be joined by Professor Chidi Odinkalu, a former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission. And we will be talking about the statement made by Senator Bukuchua, Senator Rochas Okorocha, the response of the Nigerian Bar Association, and how the effect of politics on our judiciary. Stay around. We'll be right back, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight on the program. Professor Jidiofo Adibe is here. Stay here with me. Thank you so much, Prof. And I'm being joined by another professor. This time around, a lawyer, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, former chair of the National Human Rights Commission, who joins us virtually from London. Thank you so much, and it's good to see you again, Prof.
Thanks a lot.
A few days ago, you heard at the valedictory session of the Nigerian Senate, Senator Bukuchua, what he said about his colleagues and the pressure they put on him to put pressure on his wife. But let me remind you of what was said.
I must thank particularly my wife, whose freedom and independence I encroached upon while she was in office. And she has been very tolerant and accepted my encroachment and extended her help to my colleagues.
Distinguished, please, I don't think this is a good idea, go in this direction. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea, please.
That was perhaps not the only thing that was said. When Senator Rochas Okorocha also stood up, this time around he was making reference to how the Senate President Ahmed Lawan got into office. But let me allow you to hear from Senator Rochas Okorocha.
We shall all stand to say Nigeria is a great country. And to those of you, our colleagues, including you, Mr. Senate President, you know you're a very smart politician. How you came back is yet another political book to discuss.
Sorry?
I say how you came back is another chapter in our political history.
How I came back from where?
Mr. President, how you return to the Senate as a senator will open another chapter of great discussion in our political book. Because I was there in the field with you running for president. I never knew how you were able to meander and return and leaving some of us. Next time, you must teach me how to do that.
It was easy. It was easy. I was there with you in the field, but after our defeat, my constituents thought they needed me again.
Well, that gets our attention. Let me bring in first Professor Chidi Odin Kalu. The NBA has reacted to these, asking for the prosecution based on the statement that are being made. What is your own view about this issue, politics and the pressure on our judiciary?
Well, thank you very much for having me, Michelle. I don't know what aspect of that you want my views on.
Let's begin with Senator Bukachua's statement.
Yeah, I thought Senator Bukachua spoke with tremendous clarity. His diction is sensational. Nobody can accuse him of having been inebriated, except with tremendous love for his wife. And when you love your wife so much, you have to call her corrupt judge on the floor of the Senate. I mean, that's the height of love, because that's precisely what he did. And now, whether the corruption was exercised in favor of his partners in crime in the Senate, or in favor of others not on the floor of the Senate, is immaterial. Now, I find it quite informative that in law there is something called spousal privilege, which is that one partner to a marriage would be precluded from testifying against the other partner to the marriage based on the assumption that 1 + 1 in marriage is 1. So in this, there is spousal privilege and there is parliamentary privilege. And Senator Bukachua was in the rather special situation of being able to exercise both privileges at the same time. But he decided in this case to override spousal privilege with parliamentary privilege. And the question now must be how to treat this. Now, what he said on the floor of the Senate is one thing. What actually happened or transpired is another thing. A lot of reaction has been raised, obviously, about what he said on the floor of the Senate. But the real issue is what actually transpired. Because if what he said actually did happen, it is beyond a scandal. And now, the National Judicial Council met yesterday in its 122nd statutory meeting and somehow managed to wimp out on that particular episode, managing to say nothing about it. And the president of the Nigerian Bar Association then issued this scandalous statement, in my view, in which he purported to speak on behalf of the National Judicial Council, which he does not have the capacity to do, not being the presiding officer, nor the spokesperson of the National Judicial Council. And he's giving us reported speech claiming that the National Judicial Council condemned what Senator Bukachua did. But it is not clear what Senator Bukachua did, whether it is what they are condemning. In any case, the National Judicial Council, being a deliberative body, cannot condemn what it has not investigated. And I find it very significant that neither the National Judicial Council institutionally nor the office of the Chief Justice of Nigeria as the chair of the National Judicial Council are willing to stand up and say what they will do about this. It is not up to the president of the NBA to speak for the National Judicial Council. So his statement, in my view, was tragically an attempt at a cover-up of what is, without a shadow of doubt, the most significant blot on record of judicial integrity and independence in Nigeria as we speak.
So, I mean, what are the implications on the judiciary if these kind of statements are coming out? Perhaps the kind of pressure that Senator Bukachua is pleading on the encroachment, that, I mean, this is coming to light now based on the statement or what you will say. I mean, I'm not sure this is an admission. This is somewhat a confession, I mean, if in some way. But what do you make of the impact on the judiciary?
Do you want me to be honest, or do you want me to play public relations?
No, please, go ahead, be honest.
Because if you want me to be honest, anybody who knows the judicial system will tell you that all of us know that this is what has been happening. The only difference here is that a man who has been actively involved in procuring these unseemly outcomes in the system has, under whatever influence, certainly not of alcohol, if I may, nor of psychotropic substances, it seems evident. Those are the only two influences I would exclude from this particular situation. But having been involved in this, he's chosen to come clean. Now, this man who presided over that particular session, Senator Ahmed Lawan, came back to the Senate on the basis of one of the most scandalous judgments the Supreme Court has ever rendered. And not even the justices of the Supreme Court who sat on the panel that gave that decision can rationalize what they decided. The only way that anyone can explain the decision that returned Ahmed Lawan to the Senate has to be that it was procured by the kind of influence that Senator Bukachua was talking about. He has been succeeded by another senator, my good brother, Godswill Akpabio, who did not run for the role of a senator. So he was defeated. The person who won the role was former DIG Hipodum, and he was robbed by judicial process. The man who led the campaign for Godswill Akpabio, the immediate past Ebonyi State governor, again ran for president. He is in the Senate. And all of this has been procured by scandalous, utterly scandalous, inexplicable judicial decisions from the Supreme Court, or in any case, from appellate courts. And now we are getting to hear from the insiders how they procure these criminal judgments, bringing our judicial system into disrepute. And because they are complicit in this, the judges who sit in the NJC will be unwilling and unable to factually investigate this because they'll be investigating themselves.
Okay, so quickly, before I bring back Professor Gideon Fadibi, there's been an arrest and the suspension of Mr. Godwin Emefiele, the suspension and investigation of Mr. Bauer. In the eye of the law, what do you make of these circumstances?
Look, I have no sympathy for Godwin Emefiele. I will not say much more beyond that. I'm already on record. I've written up my views on his tenure as CBN governor. I quite genuinely and honestly believe that quite a good bit of what transpired under his tenure as CBN governor was criminal. Whatever fate befalls him within the legal process, I will not shed a tear for him. And I'm not even sure that he would want any of us to shed a tear for himself, because I'll be scandalized if he did not realize that a good deal of what he did was beyond the realm of criminality. This is my view, mind you. Now, with the EFCC, I am at the moment, you see, I've got a problem here. Every EFCC chair, bar none, has come to grief. And so the question one has got to ask is it the job or is it the politics? But something is wrong. It cannot be that every chair of the EFCC since Nuhu Ribadu gets fired. And all we are focused on is the musical chairs and not the idea that something is fundamentally wrong. And so why would anyone want the job if you're guaranteed to be fired? If the country does not want to fight corruption properly or at all, or does not want anyone to do it, then let's scrap the position and scrap the institution. But the idea that whenever a new president comes in, they've got to fire or humiliate or terminate or exterminate the incumbent in the office of the chairperson of the EFCC is offensive in my view. There is something to me that just does not sit right about that. So in many ways, my perspective on Emefiele is quite different from my perspective on Bauer. I'm not convinced that we are treating the position of the chair of the EFCC as it should be treated.
I'll come back to you just in a moment because I'd like to get your legal opinion on those who believe that the DSS doesn't have any business investigating issues relating to money laundering or financial crimes and all of that. They can investigate issues relating to national security. Those are, I mean, that's a school of thought, but I'll come back to you just in a moment. And that's your write-up on Godwin Emefiele's overdue dessert. I'd like you to touch on it before we go on the program. But Prof. Adibe, give us a sense of what is happening. It does look like there is some kind of tsunami, and we may have not seen the end to these removals, these suspensions, and these uprooting of some people at the helm of affairs, especially within the security and investigation agencies. What do you make of this generally?
Well, I generally, first of all, most governments that will come into power will make fighting corruption one of the planks of their governance. And when you go after perceived big people, somehow it satisfies a section of the population that are, looking for people who take down on their perceived social class or ethnic enemies. But the way I see it is that it often creates more problems than it solves, because there is the politics that is involved, managing the politics of every removal. I give you an example. When he removed Emefiele, which I believe he really committed a number of infractions, most annoyingly trying to run for APC primaries while clinging to his job. But then as soon as you do it, people will start raising questions. One, why? What is the metric criteria for picking on Emefiele and leaving A, B, C, D, E? And, you did it because you wanted somebody from your own ethnic group who is actually a mechanical engineer to be the CBN. And that goes on each time you start with this sacking. I would have preferred a situation where, given the fact that he came in with a narrow legitimacy base, at least the first 6 months, try to consolidate on what you're trying to do. And before you start this sack, because it's going to continue. And each time, when
so there's likely to be more, isn't it?
Yeah, when you hear, because the pressure will be there. When you hear people say corruption fighting back, what they are trying to tell you is that they are not able to manage the politics. I'll give you an example. Shortly after Lawal, the invasion of the judges at midnight, I think it was around 2018 or thereabout, it coincided with a time I was to give a lecture there. And one thing I told them was, look, I disagree with what you people did. Of course, you could, you're there and you could put me behind the border. But they got the politics right. The politics was that they made sure that they went together. They identified a number of them from different ethnic and religious groups, so nobody could accuse them of ethnic or religious bias. So getting the politics right is one thing. So if you don't get the politics right, now, for example, people are already imputing several motives and compiling names, say, if you don't go after this man, then this is vendetta. And often, without knowing it, you respond to those pressures And by so doing, you leave the art of governance. How many people that were investigated? What came out of several investigations? So I think it's, I am not really a fan of people starting with trying to undo their predecessors. And before you know it, you are getting closer. Some of the things that MFLA, was said to have done, and he did quite a couple of things wrong. For example, literally taking over the functions, what should be the functions of ministries of agriculture and water resources in a bid to ingratiate himself to some power brokers. Before you know it, you are getting closer. If it is, as people have suspected or alleged, that it's because of Naira redesign, then Buhari had come up and said, look, I approved it. So you are now very, very close to getting to people pointing you, why are you not going to Buhari? And in another breath, people were mentioning Dangote. Are you going to go after these people?
All right. Now, let me get Professor Odinkalu's final thought. Godwin Emefiele, the article you wrote about the list of the things that infractions that you raised allegedly, but again, is the legality of what the DSSE is doing. Are you also of that school of thought?
Legality of what? Now, look, the SSS is set up by Section 1 of the National Security Agencies Act of 1986. And I listened to the conversation that preceded this and all of the stuff about whether or not the president will redesignate or not redesignate National Security Advisor. No, he can't. The Coordinator of National Security is created under Section 4 of the National Security Agencies Act, which is entrenched by Section 318 of the 1999 Constitution. The president cannot redesignate that because entrenchment under Section 318 means that you can only amend the National Security Agencies Act by the procedure for amending the Constitution. So let's get out of that stuff. He can appoint as many advisors as he wants. The Constitution allows him to do that, but he cannot redesignate Coordinator of National Security. Now, the question as to what the SSS can do. The SSS has powers, and I call it SSS, not DSS, because the entity created by the National Security Agencies Act is SSS, not DSS. You cannot amend the name of the entity as a matter of law. So when I say SSS, it's the same thing you're talking about. The SSS cannot be, the powers are there under the law. Number one, crimes of internal security. Number two, crimes related to classified, non-military classified matters or other issues that the president may assign to them to do. I don't know what the president has assigned them to do. So I am not able to, but in any case, instrument number 1 of 1999 enables the SSS with the same powers as the police. So in respect of issues in relation to which they have substantive powers of investigation, they have police powers. And police powers include investigation and prosecution. Now, don't ask me whether I like this. That is what the law is. Full stop.
All right. Professor Chidi Odinkalu, it's good to see you. Thank you for being honest, although in a troublemaking manner, because there are a lot of people that won't be happy about it. But if it's the truth, who cares? Thank you so much, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, for coming on tonight. Professor Chidi Fadibe, thank you so much indeed for your time also. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
But that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye-bye.